Hello, friends. How are we today? Take that silence as so good. So as you can see, I am not Chris. I hope you don't mistake me for him. I mean, maybe through my words, but not how we look. That made me a little upset. No offense, Chris. But um, basically, Chris asked me to speak today just to give himself a little break so he can be really well rested for tonight for reunion. Come to that tonight. So basically, we've been talking a lot about revival, restoration. This past weeks we've kind of been talking about how reviving what has been lost. Hold on, the slides. We kind of talked about a big part of reviving what has been lost is restoring things back to what they once were. So kind of going back, looking at our old self, and realizing that things have been lost, and we need to kind of take those back. We talked about priorities and how God needs to be our top priority, and how when He's our top priority, He kind of changes how we invest in our relationships and how we look at them, and how it's really important to have that, to have God be our center. And then we've also talked last week about how restoration requires movement from us. Last week's message was titled "We Gotta Move," and we really gotta move if we want to be restored and be revived in our faith. And so, going based off of the "we gotta move," how do we move? We're talking about habits today, because habits are a part of our lives that are us constantly moving every day. I think at pretty much everything in our life is a habit if you think about it. But to move in our faith, we really need to center ourselves and realize what are our daily habits, what are our patterns, what are our disciplines, what are we doing with ourselves. And so to begin, here's my definition of a habit. It's not Google's, it's mine. But basically a habit is a frequent or consistent behavior or action that we do to fulfill a need or desire. And so we have good habits, we have bad habits. Think of a lot of us, not me, but a lot of us bite our nails. That's a habit we have. A lot of us, not a lot of us, we all should, but every morning and night we brush our teeth. That's a habit, and we're doing it to fulfill the need of cleaning our teeth, because we need that. And so I'm kind of gonna take habits into 3 different types of habits that we have. And so the first one I'm going to talk about are habits we need to end. These are bad habits. Bad habits, sins, the things. Have you ever heard of habitual habits? These are habits, habitual sins, sorry. These are sins that are just habits of our lives, and they're bad. They are hurting our souls, and they're not good for us. And so there are plenty of bad habits in our lives, and they are leading us away from God, whether we realize or not. It's a darkness in our lives, and it's the opposite of God's fruit. We are people, we are human flesh, and we go to God to obtain His fruit. And when we have bad habits, we're doing the complete opposite. And so stopping bad habits is very hard. I feel like we can all relate to that. I think of when I was little, I would suck my thumb, and it took me years of my dad yelling at me and smacking my hands in my mouth, just because it's a thing we did, and it's not good for you. And Jesus, He legit asks us to go away from that. In the screen it says Proverbs 28:13, "Whoever conceals their sins or bad habits does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces, so rejects or gives up their bad habits, will find mercy." And so God is literally saying, we have these bad things in our lives, and it's okay, because God just wants you to ask for forgiveness, and He will take it away because He loves us. We are His children. He wants us to prosper, and He has mercy for us. So basically, having these bad habits is going to take a really, really honest conversation with you and God, and it's going to take a lot of reflection on yourself, which is a really hard thing to do. An honest conversation with us, your counselors, your family, your friends, but you need accountability in stopping these bad habits. Our next type of habits are habits that need to change. And so as we depend on God, we grow, and when we grow, we may grow out of things. A quick little example I think I can share is I love riding my bike. Quarantine has made me an avid bike rider, especially in the summer, and I'm a beach cruiser girl. You can catch me in the Tustin streets, wind blowing in my hair. I'm like the main character moment. I'm a beach cruiser person. And if you guys don't know, our good old Connor Bramwell is a mountain biker. He rides hard, he's really at it, and so being the good girlfriend I am, I'm trying to get into mountain biking. A complete switch from beach cruising, if you ask me. He's doing like wheelies around like giant rocks. I'm used to flowing, like Esplanade Trail is a thing for me, like tough on my beach cruiser. But now I'm on mountain bikes, guys. And so he's taken me on one mountain bike ride to Peters Canyon, and he was trying to show off. He did a cool little trick, and he fell. It was really pathetic, I'm not gonna lie. It was the smallest little bump, and he just like, woo! And I'm right behind him. And I'm on this giant mountain bike, way too big for me, and so I'm trying to stop. I can't touch the ground, low key, which is bad, but I can't touch the ground. My habits are to push on the back pedal. You know, when you stop a bike, you kind of push backwards. You don't do that on a mountain bike. That's not a thing you do. So my habits are telling me, come on, push back, so I don't run him over. And basically, if you guys don't know, to stop on a mountain bike, it's all on the bars, all on the handlebars. I don't ride that. That's not my habits. I'm used to the beach cruiser, you know, gliding with my back pedal to stop. So I'm on this bike. He's on the ground in front of me, falling, and I cannot stop for the life of me because I'm just trying to go backwards. My feet are going crazy. It is the worst thing ever, and it's scary. And so at a point in my life, knowing to backpedal and brake like that was good for me, and that was a good habit. But as I've grown and leveled up in my biking career, and I'm doing mountain biking now, it's not a good habit. I've outgrown that, and it doesn't work for me. I have to use the handlebars, and it's a new habit I have to learn. So my habit of braking has to change into using the handlebars. And so sometimes our habits were good for us at one point, but we've grown from that, and that's really good. And it's important for us to acknowledge that, because if we stay in those bad habits and those habits that were once good for us, it's not going to help us anymore. So when you think of these things, what have you outgrown? You kind of got to move forward, and it's good. And Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But then he later says, when I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. And so Paul's literally saying, like, hey, I was once a child, and I act like one, and that was good for me. But I've grown into being a man, and now I have to change the way I live my life. And that's good. There's like other verses in 1 Peter 2 and 1 Corinthians 3, where we kind of hear a metaphor of, you know, milk for babies and then solid food for adults. At one point, the habit of drinking milk was good for us, and it was a good, healthy habit, but we've grown, and so now we need those solid foods to fulfill us. And so it's good to grow, but just look back at your habits and make sure your habits are growing with you. And so our last habit are habits that need to start. This one, you know, we got the ending, we got the ones we got to cancel out, and we got the ones that need to be changed. So now we got ones that need to begin. And so, have you ever heard that? I mean, we all heard of it, but you are what you eat. Basically, you are what your habits are. Your habits form you and shape you, whether you like it or not. And so, in Hebrews 12:10-11, it says, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Habits are hard, and they're going to be hard, and like it says here, it's going to be painful, if we're being honest. It can, really good days, really bad days, but in the end, it will be producing God's holiness, and we will have harvest in him. And that's what we need. And so when you look at yourself, like, you have all these habits that need to start. Like, you know, we have like the basic ones we all say, like as examples of reading your Bible more, good, praying more, good habits. And these things will produce the fruit in you. And that's God working in you. And that's what we want for you. And so do we want to be known by our bad habits or our old habits? Or do we want to be transformed by the renewing of our minds and the renewing of our habits, And that's God working in us. And so, I have this acronym for the word habits, which I found to be very helpful when trying to figure out what to do with my habits, when to stop them, create them, And I think it's pretty smart. I can't get credit for it because I found it online, but habits, okay. The H is for healthy identity. And this is basically, who are you and who do you want to be? What is your identity? Is it healthy? Is it rooted in God? Or is it rooted, in your sin and like the habits you have now that aren't Jesus? So I'm gonna do a quick run by all these, by the way. But like, who are you and who are you trying to be? The A is ask for help. Habit making is hard. Habit stopping is also hard. Ask for help. Accountability is crazy important when you're trying to do this. And that's why God has given you a community. He's given you himself, and he's given you this whole room of people and us to go to for help, because we know we want what's best for you, and so we will help you figure out what needs to end, what needs to begin, and what's a little old for you. I think in one of my classes we talked about how there is a part of ourselves that we will never know, and it's just because it's our brain, so we don't see it. And so we need to ask for help from people who see the sides of you that you don't know. The B is for be kind to yourself. I think habits, you will fall. It will be painful, there will be failure, but there will be successes, and that's okay. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a real thing, you guys. So be nice to yourself. It's okay. Don't give up. I think a lot of times, for instance, back to my mountain biking, when I ride backwards, scariest thing ever, and I want to stop so bad. But I'm trying to learn. It's a learning process that I have to get through. And so be nice to yourself. We're going to fall short sometimes, but God is so gracious, and he gives us love and grace and mercy. So give that to yourself too, because we need it. The I is for investigate. This is basically who, what, when, where, why, how. I'm going to have to go back with it. But the who. Who are you? Who are you trying to be? Who are you identified by? Like all these things. Who, what? What do you want to be formed by? What do you want to be known by? What is causing you to have these habits? What's your background? What's happening in your life? Where? Where are you going to start? Where are you going to go to? Who are you going to have time with? Who, what, where, why, how? How are you going to do this? Are you going to do it alone? I hope not. We're here for you. How are you going to get this done? Are you going to make a plan? Is it just going to be casual? How are you going to do this? Because if I can tell you from experience, habit making and changing yourself is not easy if you just say, I'll do it. It's the how. You need to think of how you're going to get this through and what's going to happen. Who, what, when, where, why. How? Did I do all this? I didn't get it all in. But basically, when you investigate, you're the investigator of yourself, and you need to analyze yourself and realize, what do I need help with? Where can I get this help? How can I get this help? And how can I change? How can I be more like God? And then the T is for thank God through it all. God gives us this growth. Just remember, all this growth is because God loves us, and he wants us to be the best versions of ourselves possible. So basically, thank God through it all. Thank God before your change, thank God during it, thank God after it. Celebrate with God, fail with God. He wants to be there with you, and he wants to hear all your thankfulness and all of your anger. He wants it all. So through all this habit making, changing, and ending, thank God, because he's in the root of it all, and he's the one sticking with you. And then the S is for small wins every day. I think when we have these habits and we fail, we get so down on ourselves sometimes, and we don't give ourselves the grace that God gives us. And so when we're going through these habits, just really analyze and think, today I did 1 step closer to my big goal. Today I did a good thing. Celebrate everything you can, because it will help you continue and succeed. And a bunch of small wins will lead up to one big win. And it's easier to get down on yourself if you just focus way ahead to the big one. But if you can look at yourself every single day and say, I did that, you deserve it. You did that. That's good. Be proud of yourself for the movement. You said you want to move and you're currently moving. Be proud of yourself. If it's one tiny little step, that's awesome. That's great. And so I hope you get that. And basically, just remember that our habits not only show our heart, but they also shape our heart. So when you're looking at your habits, remember that's kind of forming who you are. And when you're looking at what you want to be, remember your habits are going to get you there. So our habits not only show our hearts, but they shape our hearts. And restoring and reviving our habits is an essential part to becoming closer to God. You know, if we're stuck in our sinful nature and our sinful habits, we're gonna be far away from God, and that's not what we want for you guys. You know, like I said earlier, our habits kind of show us if we have fruit or not. And so if you want to be close to God, we gotta have those fruits and let the Spirit work through us. And we're going to be doing that with our habits and our movements and being active in our faith. So yeah, that's all I have for today. But remember, God loves us and He wants us to succeed. And He wants us to be the best version of ourselves. And we can do that with the help of Him and through our habits. So would you guys pray with me?